With months still to go, Miliband and Cameron call each other's bluff. One says, why won't you take part in the TV debates? The other, why won't you rule out a coalition with the SNP? Also tonight, on the eve of the loss of the Malaysian jet, a British plan to stop planes disappearing again. Obama's passionate speech commemorating Selma, a defining moment in the US civil rights movement.
It was not a clash of armies, but a clash of wills.
And FA Cup fury. Aston Villa win, but face the prospect of disciplinary action after a pitch invasion tonight.
This is ITV News with Raghi Omar.
Good evening. There's another 2 months to go before the voting booths open, but today David Cameron and Ed Miliband upped the ante in the run-up to the general election, throwing down challenges to each other. The Labour leader confirmed he would take part in the pre-election TV debates and urged Mr Cameron to do the same. The Prime Minister challenged him to rule out a post-election coalition between Labour and Scottish nationalists. From Edinburgh, our Scotland correspondent Debbie Edward reports.
Introduced as the next Prime Minister, Ed Miliband was greeted by cheers and a standing ovation from the Scottish Labour Party faithful in Edinburgh this morning. If they were feeling downbeat by the predictions of a collapsed vote in May's election, then they weren't showing it. The polls suggest every Labour seat in Scotland is under threat, and as he rallied his troops for the battle ahead, Ed Miliband confirmed he will take part in the TV debates.
The Labour Party has written to the broadcasters saying that with or without David Cameron, I'll be at the debates. And every day, up to those debates, he will be asked, what are you hiding from?
So my friends,
campaigning in North London, David Cameron was trying to shift the focus off of the TV debates and onto whether there would be a deal or no deal between Labour and the SNP.
you could end up with an alliance between the people who want to bankrupt Britain and the people who want to break up Britain. And even today, Ed Miliband will not rule out a deal or backing from the SNP.
In the likely event of a hung parliament following the general election, Labour could very well find themselves needing the support of the SNP to form a government.
While the Nationalists have ruled out a coalition with the Conservatives, they haven't rejected a pact with Labour. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has indicated she would be willing to work with Ed Miliband on an issue-by-issue basis.
The Labour leader is hoping it doesn't come to that.
Every vote cast for another party, including the SNP, makes that prospect of a Tory government more likely. It's just a matter of arithmetic, because every one less Labour MP makes it more likely the Tories will be the largest party.
The result of this election could force some uncomfortable alliances. Debbie Edward, ITV News, Edinburgh.
Let's get more now from our political correspondent Carl Dinnan, who's in Downing Street. And Carl, I understand developments tonight about this question of debates.
Yes, that's right. Not only has Ed Miliband said he will be at the debates this time around, he's also now trying to make sure debates happen in future elections as well. He said that any future Labour government would try and set up a statutory body with a legal framework to organise debates and try and avoid the kind of horse trading that we've seen around them this time. Now, as far as this time is concerned, Number 10 have reiterated that their final offer still stands. The Prime Minister is still willing to take part in one 7-way debate in the final week of March. The problem is he's alone in that. The broadcasters and all the other party leaders want to go for the 3-debate format through April. So that could go ahead. It looks like it will now without the Prime Minister being present. The big question is always, does that matter to voters?
Very interesting. Thanks, Carl. Carl Dinnan in Downing Street. Scotland Yard has admitted it could have done more to warn the families of 3 teenage London girls that their school friend had run away to join the so-called Islamic State in Syria. Officers say letters given to the girls, Khadija Sultana, Amira Abbas and Shamima Begum, could have been sent direct to their parents. Not all the girls passed them on to their families before running away to join IS themselves. But a spokesman added that relatives were told about the other girls' disappearance in a phone call from the school. 3 17-year-old teenagers and a 68-year-old woman have died in a crash between two cars. It happened late last night in Powys, mid-Wales. 5 men have been arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving. 2 men have been detained over the murder of Russian opposition leader Boris Nemtsov. He was shot dead near the Kremlin last week amid suspicion it was carried out to silence critics of President Putin, claims that President Putin denies. The White House was put into lockdown this afternoon after a loud noise was heard moments before President Obama and his family were due to leave. A fire at a mobile food van is being blamed for the alert. 50 years ago today, a peaceful march in America was brutally stopped when protesters were savagely beaten by police in Selma, Alabama, a defining moment in the civil rights movement, which has now been turned into a major feature film. Tonight, President Obama visited the city to commemorate what he called the clash of wills that made Selma America's Bloody Sunday. Sue Saville reports.
Commemorating a half-century milestone in American civil rights on a bridge in Selma, Alabama, President Barack Obama declared that non-violence is the way to make progress and warned that the race to equality is not yet won.
Our march is not yet finished, but we're getting closer. 239 years after this nation's founding, our union is not yet perfect, but we are getting closer. Our job's easier because somebody already got us through that first mile. Somebody already got us over that bridge.
50 years ago today, 600 protesters crossed the bridge at Selma to march 54 miles to the state capital to demand equal voting rights for all Americans. But the march was violently stopped after just a short distance when state and local forces attacked the peaceful protesters with batons and tear gas. 17 of the marchers needed hospital treatment. The day became known as Bloody Sunday. One of the protesters then hosted today's event.
If someone had told me when we were crossing this bridge that one day I would be back here introducing the first African-American president, I would have said, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, you don't know what you're talking about.
You march those people into rural Alabama, it's got to be open season.
The role of Martin Luther King in events at Selma have recently been dramatized in a film. President Obama said the message from that history was still relevant today in making progress in civil rights.
It was not a clash of armies, but a clash of wills. A contest to determine the true meaning of America.
Having referred to recent killings in Ferguson and New York, the president said that on the long journey towards freedom, there was still some way to go. Sue Saville, ITV News.
The Malaysian government says a new report into the disappearance of flight MH370 will be released to the public tomorrow as relatives of the missing gather on the eve of its disappearance. It comes as British pilots call for better tracking devices to be fitted to aircraft. Here's Martha Fairley.
It is almost 1 year since Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 disappeared without trace. But on the eve of the anniversary, they are no closer to finding the plane and its 239 passengers and crew. 26,000 square kilometres of seabed in the Indian Ocean have been scoured by ships and planes in a search that's expected to last until May. After then, the Malaysian government says it will review search efforts.
I'm cautiously optimistic it should be in this area because they're confident, the expert, given us the data, the plane is in the South Indian Ocean.
In Kuala Lumpur, families held a vigil to remember their missing relatives. Mystery surrounds what caused the plane to turn off course on a routine flight from the Malaysian capital to Beijing. And to identify future crash sites more quickly, British pilots are calling for virtual black box flight recorders.
If the aircraft crashes in a remote location, you then have to find the aircraft to get all the data. And of course, we're all aware from the technology we use every day that it's now possible to transmit location data and so on. So in principle, all the technologies are there. So the call is quite simple to have the data stored remotely.
But in the Indian Ocean, there is no fresh clue, not a single piece of debris. For now, the search for MH370 continues. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
The FA has suspended Manchester United's Johnny Evans for spitting. It follows his clash with Newcastle's Pape Cisse during Wednesday's Barclays Premier League match. Evans has been banned for 6 games. Cisse's already accepted a 7-match ban. Football, and in the FA Cup, crowd trouble marred Aston Villa's quarter-final victory over West Bromwich Albion. In the past few minutes, the club has issued an apology after Villa fans leapt over the security barriers to invade the pitch before and after the final whistle. They are now facing the prospect of an FA investigation. Anil Sengera reports.
Someone has taken a corner flag out. This is daft.
These are scenes many had thought were long gone from the top flight of English football. Aston Villa supporters invading the pitch before the end and again after the final whistle of their FA Cup quarter-final tie against local rivals West Bromwich Albion. These unsavoury pictures, beamed to millions around the world, will once again leave a stain on English football. There was little to suggest those scenes when the game began. The hosts took the lead in the second half, courtesy of their captain, Fabian Delph, drilling a fine shot from 18 yards. Villa sealed victory with this wonderful Scott Sinclair strike 5 minutes from time. But the game will be remembered for these scenes at the end, a dreadful finale to what should have been a memorable night for Aston Villa Football Club. Tonight they face an anxious wait to see if the FA decide to take any action. Anil Singera, ITV News.
And finally, it might seem a strange sport for a Briton to excel in, hurtling down an ice track at speeds of up to 80 miles an hour on what looks like a tea tray. But Lizzy Yarnell does just that. Today, the 26-year-old from Kent won gold in the Skeleton World Championships in Germany, adding the title to her Olympic, World Cup and European successes, giving her a career Grand Slam of victories. Exhausted but ecstatic, a beaming Yarnell said, "It's all I ever wanted." And that's it. The weather's next, but from me and all of the team on the programme tonight, good night and thanks for joining us.
Crizal UV protective lenses sponsors the ITV National Weather.
It's not all glamour, you know.
Hello to you again. A very good evening. Well, after that steady heavy rain across western Scotland, a weather warning remains the next few hours before that rain slips its way into parts of England and Wales. The rain continues its journey into southern and western spots into tomorrow morning. So by and large, flip fortunes on today. Disappointingly dull and damp across these areas. The rain shuffling its way southwards and eastwards, easing as it goes into tomorrow afternoon. And then behind this, so much better than today. Brighter skies, the sunshine returns, just a few blustery showers across northern Scotland, maybe a little sleet and snow mixed in as that colder air nudges in before the end of the day. And after that mild air today and highs of 17 or 18, so much cooler for all of us. I'll see you again soon. Good night.
Crizal UV protective lenses sponsors the ITV National Weather.